Hi, my name is Nicole London, and I want to thank you for joining me today. Today we're here to talk about Sheldon's most recent reevaluation data. Sheldon's last reevaluation was done in 2016. At this time, he was a sixth grader. Before we begin talking about his testing data and the results of all of that, I'm going to go over his classroom-based assessments from his teachers. So each of his general education teachers at the time completed a CBA. They all stated that Sheldon was very much an out-of-the-box thinker, that he came up with great ideas. He had great suggestions. He's very strong in history and geography. Um, he does struggle, however, with organizing his ideas into complete thoughts. So his English teacher, she noted this especially, that when Sheldon is asked to write or even develop a sentence, he really struggles to put all of his ideas together in one coherent, fluid piece. In math, his math teacher reported that he was able to perform grade level calculations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, division without any trouble, but that if he had a word problem, then he struggled to decipher from the word problem and understand what the word problem is actually asking him to complete. And then in science and history, his science teacher noted that he absolutely does not always get help from his peers. He really loves science, but he often refuses to work with a partner if he's paired with someone, even if that is someone he considers a friend. And then in history, he really struggles to keep up with his work. He struggles to keep up with assignments. He struggles to turn in work. And we've seen this before with Sheldon, particularly in math. He will do his homework, but then he oftentimes forgets to actually turn the homework in. And so his grade has suffered from that in the past, because there was a lack of communication between Josh and his teacher, and then he wasn't turning in the work that he had completed, and then but thankfully that was all resolved. And so for this assessment, Sheldon was given several different assessments, and so we're going to briefly talk about each of those and his strengths and weaknesses, related to those assessments. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Reynolds. The Reynolds is an IQ test that measures verbal and nonverbal intelligence, and then it also has a combined score. And so, for this assessment, a score of 100 is considered average. So, really anything between 85 and 115 would be considered average whenever we are talking about standard scores. So, for Sheldon, his verbal index was a 99, his nonverbal index was a 95, and then his composite, which is the combined, was a 97. So you can see that in this, based on his IQ, his intelligence falls within the average range when he's compared to his same age peers. He was also administered an achievement test. So for this example, he was given the Woodcock-Johnson test of achievement. The Woodcock-Johnson provides standard scores in areas such as basic reading comprehension, math calculations, and written expression. So for this exam, Sheldon was given several subtests related to English reading and math and writing. In all the cases, Sheldon scored either average or above average, with the exception of 3 categories. So the first was passage comprehension. And passage comprehension measures Sheldon's ability to really to be able to understand what he's read. It starts out, they're given pictures, they have to fill in the words that relate to the picture or to the sentence, and then it progressively gets more difficult. Calculation measures Sheldon's ability to solve grade level calculations, such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And then applied problems measure Sheldon's ability to read a word problem in mathematics and understand what that question is actually asking him to do, so that he can complete the question. So, for example, he might be asked, what is the difference between 27 and 12? And he would have to know that that is asking him to subtract. So Sheldon scored above average in letter word identification, which measures his ability to understand, to identify letters and sounds. And then he also scored above average in sentence writing fluency. We know that he struggles to complete his thoughts whenever he's given a writing prompt. And so in this case, providing Sheldon with perhaps a graphic organizer, that might help give him an opportunity to be able to organize his thoughts, so then he could take those thoughts and form those sentences, which would probably help him not only in English, but in science and history in those classes as well. We do know in math, based on observation, that he struggles to set up math problems. He struggles to solve equations. And so he really struggles to understand the process of what he needs to do in order to be able to solve the math problem. He has been provided step-by-step instructions with a model when he has, for example, a problem that has several steps, so like solving a multi-step equation. He has examples, and each example is provided with an explanation. This has helped somewhat, but that's definitely still an issue that we need to address. Sheldon was also given an adaptive behavior assessment, and so this is a rating scale. This was completed by Sheldon's teacher at the time, and then her scores are then compared to the scores that Sheldon's mom completed. And when you look at the scores, you can see that they're pretty close in all areas. So when we look at a scaled score, a score between a 5 and a 7 indicates that he is slightly below average in those areas. So that's something that we want to keep an eye on. It may or may not need to be addressed at that time, but it's definitely something we want to monitor closely. A score of 4 or below is considered significantly below average, and that is definitely something that we need to focus on, providing him with appropriate accommodations to help win those areas. So when we look at Sheldon's scores, we see that he scored a 7 in motor skills. So motor skills measures fine motor skills, such as being able to write, and also measures gross motor skills, such as being able to participate in sports. And so when we look at this, we know that Sheldon does struggle with handwriting. He struggles to hold a pencil properly. And so it correlates that he would be slightly below average in that area. In all other areas, Sheldon scored either average or above average, with the exception of school and home living. In both of those categories, he scored a 4. The home living was completed by his mom, and the the school living section was completed by his teacher. School and home living measures Sheldon's ability to be able to do basic care that is needed, either for a home or for a classroom setting. So this could include cleaning. This could include taking care of your personal possessions. This could include helping adults with other tasks when asked. And based on observations of Sheldon, we know that this is by far a struggle for him. Sheldon struggles to turn in assignments. He struggles to complete tasks when the class is at, for example, if the class is asked to get out a piece of paper and the teacher says, I need everyone to get a piece of paper and a pencil and be ready to start. Sheldon usually doesn't follow these commands until the teacher has gone over and spoken to Sheldon one-on-one. Sheldon was also given the Childhood Autism Rating Scale. So this scale was completed by Sheldon's mother. In this scale measures it measures autism characteristics in children 2 years of age and older. And so for this rating scale, Sheldon's once the assessment was scored, Sheldon received a score of 23.5. So that correlates to very minimal or no symptoms of autism. Sheldon is currently being served under the category of autism. And that is something, this rating scale was not completed by a school member of school personnel or by the school psychologist. So that is something that we may need to address in the future. The behavior assessment system for children was also given to Sheldon. This is also another rating scale. And this test helps us to understand how well children are able to understand their emotions and deal with their emotions. There are several different rating scales for this particular assessment. The teacher rating scale and the parent rating scale was used, and then the results were compared. And so both the teacher rating scale and the parent rating scale were composed. They have composites, and then those composites are testing areas that are broken there farther down into subtests. And so, for example, he has a very significant, we have a significant concern whenever it comes to internalizing problems. So internalizing problems looks at how well does he deal with anxiety and things like depression. And based on Sheldon's past, we do know that he does become very anxious and he becomes very overwhelmed very quickly. So we would expect to see a score in that range for him. His teacher, this T-score that was given by his teacher in the same area was a 60, and so that identifies an at-risk range. So that may be something that we need to look at, but based on the difference between his mom's score and his teacher's score, that's definitely an area that we need to address. He also was in the at-risk range for school problems, and so this measures his ability related to attention and learning problems. And we know that Sheldon is very easily distracted. He struggles to focus, especially in math. And then as a result, he often gets very overwhelmed, which creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. It has been known to result in children having a meltdown, throwing a temper tantrum, and things like that. So we are currently working on providing Sheldon with structure so that when he does have these feelings, he's able to cope with them in a productive way, in a more productive way. Sheldon is allowed to go to his caseload manager. If he feels overwhelmed, he's allowed to go to our special education clerk and have a minute, to cool down and talk about his feelings and be able to work through those to help prevent that. So providing him with the coping strategies has been helpful, and we hope to continue to see improvement with that.